Hello, fellow seedlings and gardeners, friends, family. Welcome back to Concrete Gardens Homestead here in Southwest Missouri. I'm Carla. My husband is James. I call him Left Brain. The kids call him Daddy-O. But anyway, we got our worms in, and so our worm bin is all ready. That's the first video, which I'm sure Left Brain will figure out how to link up so that if you haven't already seen that one, you can watch it too. But we're going to be adding our worms to our worm bin tonight. We're going to make our own worm castings. We're going to produce our own this year instead of buying them in a bag because I can't buy enough for all of my raised beds. And vermicomposting is what it's called. And anyway, it's great stuff and it's so easy to do. I just recommend that we all give this a try. It's really good for our plants, flowers. Even if you don't vegetable garden, it's good for your hostas and your flowers, and it's even good for your yard. So here we go. So we're going to add our worms. Now this worm bin, we put it together and it did sit for probably 10 days or so. This is just cocoa coir that's been hydrated, and then some newspaper clippings, and you can tell they've soaked up a little bit of water. So we're ready to add the worms. Now, you don't want to overfeed these worms, especially when you first get them. These worms, these are red wigglers, and they eat somewhere between a half a pound and a pound a week if you're doing 1,000 worms, which is 1 pound of worms. Now, Left Brain went out on a limb when he ordered ours and made his own decision and got us 2,000 worms because he knows I need some compost pretty quick. And so so we have 2 pounds of worms, and now I'm going to have to feed them somewhere between a pound and 2 pounds of just kitchen scraps, really. Leafy greens, vegetables. Do not feed them onions, acidic fruits like citrus fruits, pineapple. Do not feed them. Don't feed them a lot of tomato scraps at one time. They like leafy greens. They like cooked pasta, whole grains. They'll even eat like bread crust and things like that. They like coffee grounds. They like ground up eggshells. They can use that. I'm trying to think what else not to feed them. Oh, don't feed them onions or garlic, hot peppers. They don't like spicy foods. No oils, no grease, no meats of any kind, and no processed foods. So no peanut butters or anything like that. They don't like that. No dairy. Mainly just fruits and vegetables and non-acidic fruits and leafy type vegetables, leafy greens. They love apple cores though, and they do like banana peels, but you got to cut them up. Now we blended our food because we want them to compost it really quick. So this is our food scraps from just the last few days. This was cucumber peelings, a bell pepper that had kind of gone bad in the crisper, some carrots that we threw in here, and and about a cup of water, and then we blended it up. So they should be able to eat this the first week and actually start making some compost for us within a couple of weeks instead of a month or two, which is what it would be if you just threw in the vegetables, which you can do once you get established and get some compost going. That's totally fine to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of dig on one side here and bury that food down in there. Now, red wigglers are different than earthworms. So I was reading on Uncle Jim's Worm Farm website and in their blog and everything. You cannot just go out and dig earthworms out of your garden or your yard and put them in a bin like this. They will not live. Earthworms are kind of completely different. They like to burrow deep, and these tubs are not deep enough. And they also scavenge food and things from the top of the soil and then carry it down deep. And these aren't deep enough, so they'll die and if they can't get out. So if you're going to do this, you're just probably going to have to buy some red wigglers like I did and start them in your compost bin. They live on more toward the surface, and they like to eat organic material that's breaking down, like the fruits and the vegetables. So anyway, I've dug a little hole in here on one side because I've learned from Uncle Jim's Worm Farm, it's a lot easier to harvest your compost if you'll concentrate on feeding them on one side a couple of weeks before you harvest, and then you'd want to move back and forth. But when you get ready to harvest, you feed on the same side for a couple of weeks, and then the side that they're not on is clear to harvest. Because you don't want to be taking your worms out of your worm bin, all of them, and putting them in your garden. It's fine to do that to a couple because they are going to reproduce and everything in here. So that's a good thing. But you can't, every week or two take 100 worms out with your compost and put them in your garden, or you're just not going to have any. So just alternate the sides that you feed on so they move back and forth, and then right before, a week or two before you decide to get some compost out of here, just feed on one side only. Okay, so I've made a little hole over here. Our soil is kind of moist in here. Well, this is cocoa coir and newspaper clippings mainly, and some coffee grounds, and it's pretty moist. They've come dehydrated to try to protect them from the weather. They were shipped from Pennsylvania, so they've been out in the mail for about 4 days. And so they kind of dehydrate them before they do ship them, so they're ready for some food and some water to plump back up. And so anyway, I'm going to put that in there. Since we have 2,000, I'm going to go ahead and put all of that in there. I think that was about 4 cups of food. And then I'm going to cover it up, and then I'm just going to put the worms in on the top, and then I'm going to cover them up. Some interesting facts about these worms: they have 5 hearts. I thought that was interesting. They breathe through their skin. They don't have any lungs. And they can get too wet and drown, so you don't want to get this too moist. And if you cut one in half, the head part of it will regrow a tail. So that's good news. So if you're out in your garden digging and you cut one in half, if you've cut it in half far enough back from its head, that part will live and regrow a tail. So these are the worms. I'm going to try to just gently show you what they look like here as I dump them in. They're not real big, but they are composting machines, these red wigglers. And I'm just laying them here kind of on top of where I put that food. And now I'm going to cover them. Make sure I get them all out of this little bag that Uncle Jim sent them in. And anyway, I'm going to just let them go down in on their own. They should just go down in a few minutes. And I do have some dirt here in these big coffee cans from our garden. Hopefully with no earthworms in it. I tried to just take it off the very top, and I think this time of year, it's kind of mid-February now. I think this time of year, the earthworms are down a little bit deeper, probably where it's warmer. So, anyway, but I'm going to get this dirt in there too. They'll like this. This is just dirt from the garden. I don't want to dump it right on them, so I'm just going to dump it in a corner, and then I'll spread it on them with my hands. I don't want to injure our new little concrete garden residence here. Okay. And then I'm just going to put some newspaper on top to keep them. We want them to go down, which they should. That food is down there, and they're, according to Uncle Jim, they do arrive hungry and a little bit thirsty. And so they'll go down into that cocoa coir pretty quickly. They said usually within just 15 to 20 minutes, they'll all be off of the surface and down. The other thing is, worms do not like light, so they recommended that you keep some light over your bin for a day or so. That way that deters them from wanting to come up and crawl out the air holes, which, as you remember, we have air holes all along the top here all the way around. And so that'll deter that. Let me get some newspaper over here. I'm just going to lay this in on top, and then I'm just going to wet it with a spray bottle that I have that I use on my seedling trays. But I'm just gonna lay this all in here. And that's all you do. The worms, we'll be checking on them for sure. Probably 2 or 3 days we'll check on them, make sure they're doing okay. This is just water in here. I have this tape on it because as my seedlings get bigger, as my seedlings get bigger, I do add peroxide in here, and I keep the seedlings kind of sprayed with peroxide. It reduces any kind of fungus that might happen. It also gets rid of those fungus gnats, if you have any. They stay away from seedlings that are sprayed with water and peroxide, but you don't want the peroxide to have any sunlight or any light, or it breaks down, doesn't work. So that's why the red tape is on there. That's the only reason. But right now it's just plain water in here. This is filtered water. I wasn't sure if these worms could handle chlorinated water out of the faucet, so this water I got last week and took it out of the refrigerator filter and just let it sit to get to room temperature. All right, well, that's all nice and wet, and we're done. We're done. I'm gonna get the lid and put it on. Okay. And I know I don't have any rodents in the house, so I'm just gonna leave it on loosely for now and not snap it down. But we will be checking in on these worms in a little bit, 2 or 3 days, and we'll keep you posted on how they're doing and share any failures that we may have with them, or also share the successes. That's the exciting part about this journey that we're on. If you like this video, give us the thumbs up on the video. Like it, that helps us and it helps more people see the video. Also, please subscribe to our channel. You'll receive notifications when we do upload a new video. And then if you can, just comment in the comments below. That also helps the video and moves it up so more people can see it. All right. Thank you again for watching and for supporting Concrete Gardens Homestead, and we'll be back with you in just a few days with something else. Thank you. Just going to dig a little hole here. Move that paper. Not a lot, not too deep. You can see there's no really worms right here, not too much because there was no food over here. But I'm going to put him some food right in here. Left Brain, he's really taken care of the worms. He has blended up their food for them to make it easier for them to process through it. And this is it. If you can see it here in the blender, it says that it's 32 ounces. So, and I'm just going to pour it in here for them. That's some cucumber peelings, banana peels. There's a little bit of coffee grounds in there. Some zucchini peelings. We had zucchini the other night. Anyway, just some green stuff. I think we had some leftover lettuce that we didn't use last week. Probably everybody has leftover lettuce in their fridge that they don't use every week. Anyway, that's what that is. And now I'm just going to cover it up. And all these worms, they'll move over to this side and start eating on that. And you can see this is really dark stuff here. They're turning this, they're already, that's some good stuff here where they're making some compost for us. So we'll be able to use some of this compost probably within a couple of weeks since we're blending the food. If we were just putting it in there as whole leafy greens, it would probably take them about 2 months to make us some compost. But we're trying to rush them a little bit because garden season is here, and I would like to have some worm castings to put into my seedling mixture that I use to start my seedlings in indoors. But there we go. We're going to let them go for it there on that side and see what that turns into.